Well, hello again there, friends and fans. Raptor here, and welcome to our first look at some new content for Sengoku Dynasty, the open-world survival city builder slash village builder based in feudal Japan with PvE, PvP, co-op, online play, multiplayer essentially, from the same developers who brought you Medieval Dynasty. This developer is now taking all of that medieval Poland goodness and bringing it now to feudal Japan. Looks incredible, by the way, and I am just thinking and expecting the best out of this game, as the developer did such a good job with Medieval Dynasty at the start when that game was in early access and beta, and has delivered time and time again on awesome content updates and multiplayer coming to that game soon. But this Sengoku Dynasty will have multiplayer and defenses and base building and army building and all sorts of things, as well as trading and diplomacy at the very start. Now today we're going to see a little bit more in terms of building and buildings that we can construct in the game, as we've already seen this. The CGI trailer from quite some time ago got me super hyped, and for those of you who love Ghost of Tsushima just as I do, and those of you who thought it would be a great combination of Medieval Dynasty, finally, we have something to bring the two together. Now, this developer is also working on a Wild West city builder as well, so it's going to be great to see this formula in many different settings, despite it being somewhat similar in terms of building a village. But all villages, especially in these periods, have the same thing in common. Things like building wells, having to supply food, build defenses, alert armies of attacks, and of course try to convince people to move and stay in these villages and start families, so that way, of course, more and more people are born to do more and more tasks to then give security and safety to everybody living inside, and of course food and much more. It looks incredible, looks great, reminds me a lot, of course, of Medieval Dynasty, but seeing all these buildings based in ancient Japanese architecture, building of wood and stone and such, looks gorgeous, and I couldn't be more excited. And my mind is just flying with ideas of what I can build with friends, or build alone, or build against them, or if we go to war or whatnot, or have some diplomacy. Seems like it'll be quite the adventure, of course. And this game also has RPG quests and such, so there'll be many different types of missions to do inside the game. So, of course, questing will be a thing, as well as survival and building reputation and trading. And I'm just really excited and can't wait to see a lot of the things that we can construct and the creativity we can make during a very turbulent time in Japanese history. Of course, these feudal wars between shoguns and other types of battles for power, and lots of death. But despite that, there's also a lot of honor and tradition in building shrines and temples, and it's going to be really interesting to gather all these materials and build all the things in the village, like, for example, walls and decoration, and adding all the homes in an area that could be mountainous or marshy, perfect for growing rice, or perhaps for mining, and building all sorts of weapons to trade with your neighbors. It reminds me a bit of what we've been playing recently on the channel in terms of Farthest Frontier. Now, that game, having a lot to do with medieval Europe, has a lot of things to build and trade, but this being in the first or third person mode is really immersive and incredible. I'm just picturing all of what I've played and all my experiences from Medieval Dynasty and bringing it to this game, where I have high hopes that the developer is going to deliver on yet another promising title that will be improved upon in the future, with a lot of feedback and a lot of people giving great attention to detail of accuracies, and things like, for example, everything down to clothing, as to how fences were shaped and would look, or how people would greet each other in town, or what they would wear. Each different types of class, for blacksmiths or farmers or diplomats, would wear all sorts of different clothing, or perhaps would have different hairstyles. Who knows? There could be a lot of things that you wouldn't normally think of. And it's just great to see everybody customizing, or at least in this, the possibility for everyone to customize their village and build all sorts of Torii gates and shrines and temples and whatnot all over the map. And of course, this is the type of game where you can recruit different types of AI or NPCs to your village, and your notoriety and reputation and things that you do over time will definitely increase your rep and have more people move into the village. I couldn't be more excited to try to bring people in and try to give them all jobs for things like rice farming and defenses and fishing, and trying to maybe make clothing and try to bring that to what would be otherwise a just top-down city builder, which I would be more than happy with, but I'm thrilled to see this in first and third person modes. So all the promise of what I really expected from Ghost of Tsushima, except I get to build my own village. Now, I don't think this will be as detailed with the combat as a game where you're playing as a samurai, but I'm holding this game to the highest of standards of what I really enjoyed about Ghost of Tsushima for teaching me a lot about Japanese history and culture and tradition, and what I learned a lot about Medieval Dynasty too, for what could be a fun open world experience where then you could build your own experiences by building a village and trying to defend it and fend off bandits and all sorts of other creeps and weirdos who might try to come around, but then give people safety and security so again they could build families and perhaps recruit them into their armies. Now, the developer has been trying to do a lot of studying of Japanese culture and music and poems and literature and plays to try to get a feel for what this time period would be like, and you can only go so far, of course, with historical records, debating things and giving different types of accounts, but for the most part, well documented for all sorts of different paintings and instructional manuals and things that were created during this time period. And interestingly enough, it could be a period where we might eventually see maybe gunpowder. I'm not familiar with this time period myself, but I have been reading what the developer has provided for what's known as the Scrolls of Sengoku, I believe, or the Sengoku Scrolls, a kind of a PDF that you can download for free on Steam that's somewhat similar to Emperor Rise of the Middle Kingdom, and kind of giving you vibes of what documents would look like here, and trying to teach you about what the game will allow you to do as well. So all sorts of different types of fishing techniques and logging techniques and learning history. But I've got to say, the CGI trailer piqued my interest immensely because of what the developer delivered upon with Medieval Dynasty, and to be quite fair, they didn't have really that great of experiences before with Dynasty games, with games such as I think it was Farmers Dynasty and Lumberjack Dynasty, which were kind of decent, but not really where they are now. They really truly delivered on some absolute masterpieces now, and or at least in terms of the Medieval Dynasty, I'm hoping that Sengoku Dynasty just blows everyone out of the water and is super, super enjoyable. Now, there's other games coming too, like for example Chinese Frontiers, which allows you to build the Great Wall of China and has a lot to do with building a village as well. But I do believe that this game, Sengoku Dynasty, will have a lot more customization and freedom to build a village wherever you see fit, and to explore worlds that look to be like Ghost of Tsushima, where they're really handcrafted to try to look beautiful. Now, this is a fictional area. It's not based on like the Isle of Tsushima or just anywhere specific in Japan, but trying to take, for example, Japanese mountains and highlands and lowlands and rivers and valleys and try to create something that is all of Japan, perhaps even like areas like Hokkaido and areas where there's a lot of snow often, into an area where everyone could build, to try to create a sandbox, but then also characters that will give you quests and things that you can learn about and create reputations with NPCs, but then also to do trading with friends and such, which would be immensely cool. And this is the type of game which I would like to do single player and also multiplayer, and have several games going at once. One where I learn, one where I play with friends, one where I play against friends, and just see where the most enjoyable experience is. And for me, I think it'll be probably in cooperation of working with people to build all sorts of different types of structures and homes for everyone. It will be really cool to be able to live with several, actual people, and then also to be able to, players, and then also live with PvE, or, well, NPCs, I should say, and possibly do some PvP, I guess, or PvE with other factions, too. In other words, I'm not sure if you'll be able to do something where you can just host an open server and it'll become like Rust, or if you kind of want to know everybody, and that seems like a better experience, honestly. And I'm thinking of all my experiences here in Valheim over the last few years as well. The ability to build a base in Valheim and terraform the land, which was really cool, although I don't think we'll be able to do that in this game. It's not something that I think I would totally miss or totally wish were in here, except for perhaps minor options to raise land. But that's something for another time. Here we see guard towers and alarms and walls and fences and such being built, and I don't know. I'm just really excited and hope to see much more of this game, including some confirmed release dates, and also want the developer at the same time to take their time to make sure that it turns out as great as Medieval Dynasty has so far. And I think that game is going to set the precedent of what we expect from this developer over time. Now, I haven't seen horses here, I haven't seen wagons, and the ability to perhaps trade with people going around the roads. I think that's something that Medieval Dynasty could do as well, showing trade between already existing villages, and I hope to see something like that in this game as well, or at least to see the world actually expanding and just becoming a bigger part of, I guess, the Dynasty series. I hope this becomes a franchise that people will think is a notable one, that has lots of great experiences and opportunities to do things like mining and blacksmithing and making swords and tools and perhaps ships, maybe boats. Does look like we'll be able to do fishing on the ocean or the water, so it would be nice to be able to perhaps trade via the water or build a port or something like that along the water or something. I don't know, to be like, for example, a feudal lord of the mountains, or to be the master of a navy or something like that would be really cool. But baby steps. Over time, I think this developer will really deliver upon an experience that we can all enjoy. And it looks a lot like Medieval Dynasty already, I must say. The grass and such looks very familiar, but I think there's also a lot of native trees to Japan and Asia that you would definitely see in these parts of the world that are present. And I just want to see more. All I want to see is more buildings, and I'm really happy to see that we can actually build defenses. So is it possible to build a castle? That is definitely something that would be amazing, to be able to build a large castle, keep, and then a city around it, and do that with friends, such as what many people have done already in Valheim, would be an incredible experience. So I definitely think that this is going to be a game that I'm going to play time and time again, and probably play the hell out of over and over and over again in different scenarios, and try to learn the game and all of the locations, and then of course all the fun day one exploits of doing things like trading 10 million sticks. I know we've all done that on day one of Medieval Dynasty, so it'll be cool to see it here as well. So of course we have some great survival aspects here, where of course the grind will be very tedious at the start. I can really remember Medieval Dynasty taking a long time, but I think it'll be a little less in this game because you'll be able to team up with friends right away, and the developers have probably taken some of their balancing techniques from that game and brought them over to this game. Things like, for example, home costs and how long it takes for someone to perhaps find people to move into your village, and how long it'll take them to have children, although this type of game definitely simulates the amount of time that it takes for a child to actually grow up to be somewhat self-sustaining, so that way the parents can go back to work. But perhaps cultural things will come in play here of what the cultural norms of feudal Japan were. But I don't know. I think it would be a great experience to experience the history of Japan, but in a sandbox world, trying to bring together all of the parts and places of Japan at the time, so that way you can play all sorts of different roles with friends. And I know I've got some great friends who are going to make some amazing bases, so I'm very thrilled to see how many buildings we can make custom. For example, is it just all blueprints, like for example a blacksmith or a logging camp, or is it something that we can customize ourselves and build buildings onto other buildings? It does appear that there is damage and fire, and so it could be possible to reclaim, as you see in the background there, of farms and whatnot, some buildings that are destroyed. So is it something where we come upon a village that's been ravaged by a war already raging, where we can then reclaim the land, or do we build from scratch? Or do we rebuild after being at war ourselves in our own server? That'd be quite interesting to do. But anyway, that is it for all of my thoughts for now for Sengoku Dynasty. More questions and answers, more excitement and hype than actual, ability to play it ourselves. But I think at least it'll be something that we will definitely cover on the channel, as well as many other games such as Manor Lords and more Farthest Frontier. I'll see you all soon. Thanks for watching.